There you go. Good luck, baby.
Thanks, Tom.
Can you unmute, please, Carmen?
Now that's a good start, isn't it? I'm really glad I can't see you all, otherwise I think I'd be in slight panic. But thank you so much, Lee Michael Walton, for that incredible introduction to our evening. So we have an incredible evening lined up. We've got 10 amazing speakers. And I really hope it brings a huge amount of flavour around Soulhub, the community, but also around the collective, which is our publication, which we launched today. So just to introduce a little bit about Lee Michael Walton, who is our first Soulhubber. Lee he's a multi-instrumentalist composer. That piece that he actually wrote there is for his forthcoming album, which is called The Journey Home. So it's an improvised piece. So he's pretty much played it from his heart. I don't know about you, but when I was listening to it then, it's calmed me by no end. So it's coming out in about 4 months' time. He's also part of the Soulhub team. He's written an article in the journal, as you can see there. It's called Out of the Darkness Comes Light, which is around his own journey that when he was diagnosed with cancer over 10 years ago. And he says the words kind of still stick in his mind today, as he, I guess, goes through recovery. And he reached very much the depths of despair, and he's had to rebuild his life again. Something that has meaning, which obviously he's kind of demonstrated here tonight. So thank you, Lee, for the piano arrangement, and we'll hear Lee at the end of the evening as well as we play our credit rolls. So good evening, good morning, and for some of you, good afternoon, because we have people calling in from all around the globe. We've got Canada, we've got Australia, New Zealand, Romania, London, all over the place. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. Just before we get started, just a couple of lovely housekeeping points. The first one is, can you keep your cameras on so you all can see each other and not me? So we can see your smiley faces, and if you're heading off to the toilet, maybe you want to turn it off. Please also stay on mute so that we can hear the presenters sharing their stories. You can use the chat feature as much as you like, so that will be saved down so the presenters can also see it. So chat amongst yourselves and tell each other about maybe what your stories are, why you're here tonight, where you are. We'd love to know a little bit more. And what you'll see is a spotlight on the screens as each of the presenters are talking away this evening. If you need a refreshment break, then obviously just take 5 minutes away yourself. And, you know, I'd love to showcase absolutely everybody who's been involved in Soulhub over the last 5 years and everyone who's written for the collective. But honestly, it's hundreds involved, and it's a series of magical webs, I think, that have been cast across the globe, which I feel hugely, you can hear it in my voice, feel hugely proud as I say those words in itself. But what we'll do is play kind of a credit roll at the end of the evening, so you can see those who've written in the collective themselves, which has essentially been gathered over the last 5 years on my serendipitous encounters as I've meandered around the globe. I do, however, have a couple of people that I would love to just thank up front. The first is my brother. I've lived with him for the last 10 years, and without him, honestly, Soulhub wouldn't even be here. He's been here as I've built the name, as I've created the brand, gone from my post-it notes stuck on my wardrobe and made that into something with the logo, with the brand identity, and more than that, emotionally has kind of supported me as I've brought this to life. And the other person is Phil Bennett, who is from Pip Creative, and Phil has been responsible for the journals for number 5 and for the collective itself. And Perry designed actually the first 4. So I just want to say a deep thank you to you both. So welcome to the virtual launch for the Soulhub Journal Collective. Can't believe it's actually here. 5 years pretty much in the making, and there's 100 short stories, illustrations and artwork within the book. It's a whole breadth of different stories that have come from a number of different things, whether it's an emotional state, could be somebody talking about the grief and the loss of a loved one, through to cycling from Patagonia to Vancouver, which Nikki Anderson did. So just to give you a slight little flavour, Jason Moore writes about domestic violence in a gay relationship. Rachel talks about her relationships with silence and the Day of Silence in Bali. Matt Ogg sailed across the Pacific, and he brings that to life for us. And Ben Ryan writes about winning the Olympic gold medal with the Fiji Rugby Sevens. Carolyn McCourt talks about how we work with fear, and Lizzie Luminati talks about those moments where she was with her mother as she transitioned out of this world. Fiona Jones talks about climbing her own mountain after a horrendous accident, and Phil McDougall about doodling and helping his way through cancer. So there's probably not a story in there that's not been told. And more than anything, it's the first time they've told their story. And that feels like the power of this collective. You know, people have taken a pen to paper and often haven't yet voiced those words, and then actually are very nervous sometimes, even when they give it to me. So I feel very much that I'm kind of being entrusted with many secrets, many healing journeys, moments of joy, a whole spectrum of different emotions, and brought those to you. So I feel incredibly privileged to get to that point. So today I am joined by Libby Moore, who is my co-host for this evening. I first heard Libby on a podcast in the summer of 2017 whilst I was walking in Richmond. It was for Forbes Women. And I heard her talk about her own journey. She worked with Oprah Winfrey for 11 years, but more than that, it was about her vulnerability that she shared on the podcast. And I just remember kind of stopping in the park and it kind of touching me and almost moving me to tears. And I just had this urge, which you'll hear throughout this evening, that I had to get in touch with her. So I dropped her a note on LinkedIn. She came back to me really quickly, which doesn't normally happen, not me, but LinkedIn. And then we had a very long conversation, and I was struck by just, I guess, how connected we both felt. And from there, she's become a lifelong friend and a soul sister. So I couldn't think of anyone better than to host this evening with me. So welcome, Libby.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I really appreciate that. And I remember our conversation. I was at my parents' house in Maryland, laying on my sister's bed from high school, like having this conversation. And I got up after our phone call and thought, wow, I feel like I've known that woman my entire life. And I feel like that's how we all feel with you, everybody that's on this call today. So thank you so much. And I'd love to just jump in and ask you, how did Soulhub come about? How did this even begin? How did you birth Soulhub?
I mean, there's kind of a personal journey as well as like maybe a professional journey, right? And I'll talk about maybe how they combine. And I think almost what's really interesting is the Oprah link, right? Because actually in 2015, I went with my friend Rachel and Sarah, who've both since written for the Journal, and we went to Seattle to see Oprah. And we went to her Get the Life You Want weekend. And obviously just the energy of that, right? Just being there in the room. And I just thought, do you know, there's something else in me that I want to create. I guess is how I left. And I actually remember going to a Kundalini yoga session afterwards and lying there, and just Soulhub, the word Soulhub came into my head. And prior to that, I was, you know, I'd worked in a corporate role with Barclays for 10 years. I remember a day going to the turnstile with my ticket to go to work on, you know, this good old schlap across the Canary Wharf, and I just couldn't put it in. I was just like, I don't want to go in today. And I rang Claire, my boss at the time, and just said, I'm not coming. And she was like, are you all right? And I'm like, no, not really. And I didn't know what that was. And I went off. In fact, I spoke to my brother for a coffee, and I went off to Richmond Park. And I just took time just to kind of sit and go, what is it? And it was kind of an unsettlingness, I guess, within me, which, you know, looking back, it had been there for a number of years, and continued for a few more years. But there was kind of a significant moment for me to go, this is not working anymore. And there's a different way that I want to be in the world. And there's something, I don't want to be doing banking. There's something else, but what is it? And so, you know, a marriage breakdown. I then took off traveling around the world for 12 months. As my mum always said, when you return, the emotions will still be on the tarmac when you get back. So then you'll have to face it. And actually looking for kind of a coach, I ended up, who's one of our first speakers tonight, I ended up going to wizard school. So I found myself with Andrew Wallas, where he kind of went, you're a bit confused. I'm going to call you Carmen at confused.com. And I was like, do I have to stick with that label, or is this for tonight? And so from there, I started really peeling back the layers. It was 2 years essentially of intensive psychotherapy. So we were together as a group for a weekend a month. And in all that, started looking at who I was and why I behaved the way I was, and what I wanted from my life. And I guess in that instance and over that period, I decided I wanted to help others and work with others. So I went back to school and did my own counselling training. And I guess Soul Hub, was originally about that. It was about a place where others could come to help them understand themselves better. Because I was like, well, how do you navigate this? Where do you go? There's no book that says, when you're struggling, pick this book up or go here. And, we all have to find our own way. And I wanted to be able to create somewhere to help others do that. I guess.
Wow. You're doing it. Thank you. Really, thank you for listening to your soul. And so how does it feel now that here we are? You have so many people on, so many contributors, artists, musicians, dancers, authors, so many interesting people that have been a part of Soul Hub. What does it mean to you to bring all of these talented people together?
Do you know, I was really struck this morning. The first thing I did, I woke up, I shouldn't really check Instagram, should I? I should have been praying and meditating, but I checked Instagram, and Laura, one of the Soul Hub team, had written a really beautiful post. And so she talked about how she'd met me. And I was kind of struck to tears because I know it, but there's just something really, when I remember being in the bank and Adrian sitting next to me and saying, if we could bottle what you have, that would be amazing. And I just remember I used to laugh it off. And when you think, well, what can I do for a job that brings me to life or is me? And like for all of us, I think you have to tap into, you might think it's what everybody else has, but it's like, what's your strength? And I guess my strength is that connection and bringing people together. And that's where I feel most emotional is, either if I'm in a therapy practice with somebody and I see them get it and go, what do you mean I don't have to live a life like this anymore? Or when we connected and it just, those are the moments that are really emotional for me. So how do I do that as a day job? And how do I bring that? So I feel, you can see the Soul Hub team, we've just organically all come together. And it's an incredible bunch of people who are also doing amazing work in the world. And they cross-share, they share knowledge, they support each other. If I need somebody and I'm in my therapy work that I'm struggling with, I don't know, food, nutrition, or I need someone to go to for strength training or I don't know, sexual tantric exploration. And I've got somebody, Kalindi Pete, that I can talk to or refer someone to, so it's this magical network of people. I
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I would like to, for everyone at this moment, if you have a glass of something, this would be a good time to make a toast.
I do.
If anybody, whatever you're drinking, champagne, Prosecco, water, tea, coffee, if we could all raise a glass or our virtual glasses, if you don't have one. And I'd like to propose a toast. So please raise our glasses, and to Carmen and to Soul Hub and every single contributor. And I'd like to say a toast to a world of inspiration, creativity, hope, a world like that, where our voices are heard and our hearts are nourished. Thank you so much, Carmen and Soul Hub.
Nice. Thank you, Libby. To Soulhub. And
Soulhub.
Thank you, everyone. I needed that as well. Okay, so we've got 10 interviews to get through. So if I cut people off, I'm sorry. So thank you for being here. But the first one I'd like to introduce is my guest. You've just heard a little bit about him there. So when I got off a sailing boat from China, I was guided to land on the coloured blankets of Wizard School. And everyone always asked me about it and about kind of that moment of transition. And I guess I kind of often credit the Wizard for a very impactful and what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sure he'll find it for me, but a deep dive into my inner psyche and my soul. So Andrew ran this program, the School of Wizards, with 13 other amazing women. We sat together for 2 years, we cried a lot, we screamed a lot, and we came out as hopefully better people. But one of the things he said to me was that my work with men was yet to be done. So and that kind of stuck with me, but hopefully I've moved past that now, Andrew, with another Andrew. And he also said to me that I would need to move from independence into a place of interdependence, which I think of no better way to bring that to life than you guys all sitting here and being part of Soulhub and the Soulhub Collective. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Andrew Wallas. Hello, Andrew. You can turn your mic and your camera on, if we can find you. Here he is.
Can you hear me?
Dun-dun-dun. Yes.
Hello. Who are you?
Stand up.
Notconfused.com.
Hopefully not anymore. Occasionally. Thank you for joining us this evening. So you wrote in the latest journal, and obviously for the collective itself, and you wrote about your favorite topic.
Yep.
One of your favorite topics, intention. There's one actually that you said within there that you said you're going to provide £30 million worth of financial value. So I hope I'm on your giving list. On top of that, could you just bring to life, well, like, how important is intention to you?
It's hugely important. I've been saying for many years now, Carmen, as you know, that intention is probably the most underrated power in the universe. And the reason for that is twofold. One is that for me, nothing in the universe exists without intention. So Soulhub doesn't exist without intention. Mozart's Third Piano Concerto doesn't exist without intention. Zoom doesn't exist without intention. Nothing exists without intention. You know, the house you live in, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, nothing exists without intention. And I've been saying that for a long time to some very varied groups, and nobody has disagreed with that. So if that's true, why don't we spend more time reflecting on intention? Because intention for me is the seed of all reality. So whatever your reality is, that's your intention.
Yeah. Do you believe that it has to be spoken?
I think that we need awareness. You know, a lot of people talk about awareness. We need awareness about our intention. So one of the analogies I use, which is striking, is it's a little bit like sitting in a cinema and watching a film. We're sitting there watching Gone with the Wind, or whatever. It's a bit ancient. And we get out of our seat and we walk up to the screen and we start trying to move around the characters or change what they're saying. And if we did that, people would probably arrest us and certify us. But that is how most people are living their lives, according to me. We're rearranging the furniture of our outer lives. We're changing jobs, we're changing partners, we're changing countries, expecting a different result. And as your mother said to you, when you hit the tarmac coming back, you'll still have yourself. Yeah. And intention is really the film behind the projector. So if instead of going up to the screen, we went up to the projector room and we took Gone with the Wind down and we took a different film in, we'd get a different film. And for me, it's that simple.
Yeah. So, because I find that there's certain times in my life when I feel clearer about it. And that's when I feel like I'm in the flow and things start to, the synchronicity happens And it all kind of, like, even the intention of this evening, right?
Yeah.
You know, being able to, like, it feels much bigger than what my even intention was. But there was an intention about doing a launch, doing it on this date, and almost, you know, whatever happened around that, it hasn't got in the way, because it was quite clear to me what I wanted. But there are other times in my life when the intention is not so clear. And like you said, I feel like sometimes that's when I feel like that I'm floating around.
And it's the same for me. I can't imagine it's different for anyone else. And if you go back to the analogy of the film and the projector, I don't know how many years it took to make Gone with the Wind, but there's a whole time period in which the film is made, with many ups and downs, many highs, many lows, many obstacles, and then eventually it appears on the screen. And it's the same with Tonight. It's the same with the creation of Soulhub. It's the same with anything worthwhile. It's not a one-off event. It takes time to germinate. It's like putting a seed in the ground.
Yeah.
You don't suddenly get the flower. You have to wait. And there's a process that goes on.
And so I know you reflect on your intentions, right? So you've written about the 10 intentions that you have, 5 in your personal life and 5 professionally. And then is it something that you do keep coming back to? Or
Yeah,
do you
I come back to them every day. I bring reflection and awareness to my intention, to the life I want to create every day. Because, you know, what you bring awareness to,
yeah,
it affects how you live your life. And a lot, you know, we live at a time where there's a lot of unconscious, hypnotic, collective hypnosis. And a lot of people are operating without any awareness. And sometimes I operate without any awareness. So it's about bringing the awareness back to the life I want to create. And that always starts with intention. You know, what do you want to create? And you're very clear. You've created something very beautiful and magical. And it involves a lot of people, and it's just at the beginning. It's still got a long way to go.
So interestingly, then, given the times that we're in, and it does feel like there's obviously, you know, there's shifts left, right, and centre. So even in, you know, my therapeutic work, it's quite amazing. I think as people land with me, you can see they're in a place of kind of really looking for change in the world, in themselves, sorry, rather than necessarily in the world. And I guess, you know, what do you think is that we're being asked to do? What's the most important shift that we as human beings are being asked to do?
I think the most important shift is to take our awareness from the outside. You know, for the last few hundred years, we've been very preoccupied with the outside, with outside experts, with gurus, with religious leaders, with political leaders. And that time is coming to an end. And we need to take our awareness inside. And everything starts inside out, whereas most people's lives, particularly historically, have been outside in. So the biggest shift that's happening is to actually bring our awareness to the inside to create a different world outside. Yeah. And I think it is a period of fundamental transition. You know, the last few weeks, I felt probably more excited and more in love with life than I have done for decades. I can feel the shift going on. And people are talking about it in different ways, but it's a profound shift. And there's 2 responses we can have to that. The first response is to fight it. And if you read newspapers, which some people do, some people don't, or if you watch the news, there's lots of organizations and individuals are fighting the transition. And if we fight it, we'll suffer. There'll be a lot of suffering. If we ride it, it's a little bit like a surfer. If we ride the wave, then we will experience the shift. Yeah. And the shift's going to come. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's happening in all of us right now. You're part of it. I'm part of it. So the choice is really, what is our intention? Do we want to try and argue with it, fight with it, challenge it, or do we want to just surrender to it?
And just quickly, just to finish off there, then in terms of the way you surrender, do you surrender by, how do you surrender, and then still stand up for what you believe? That's a very long question, but. Yeah,
I don't think there's a contradiction in that question either, because surrender is really accepting life as it arises, accepting what is. And you can accept what is and speak your truth about how you experience it. So for me, COVID, for example, is like a shaft of light. It's supporting our evolution. It's come in. It's a wonderful thing. It's a blessing because it's helping us to find a new pathway. It's bringing us more inside. It's taking us from the outside in. It's making us pause. So for me, surrendering to it, accepting it, not being frightened of it, it is at the same time I can speak my own experience, my own truth of what it's doing here. And whatever comes next, it's the same thing. It's not being frightened of it. It's just accepting it and embracing it.
Okay, thank you. I could talk all night to you, Andrew, as you well know. So thanks so much for being part of the journal. And a big part of my life over the last 7 or so years. So much appreciated, and I'm sure we've got much more fun to have.
Definitely.
Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you. Our next guest is a lady called Sarah Fyson. And Sarah and I connected through Natalie Hewlett, and Natalie is a lifelong friend. We went to way back when in sixth form together back in Weston-super-Mare. So Sarah's joining us from Bristol, and those two ladies met over the new fad now, but at the time, I'm sure you were one of the original instigators, maybe Sarah, but diving into cold water in Clevedon Marine Lake. So, you know, I know it's been something for many people. It's risen in the press over, you know, particularly during the last 9 months when people have kind of wanted to check out or get out into nature. There's a lot more people looking for those hotspots. But firstly, welcome, Sarah. Thank you for writing for the journal, and welcome this evening. Sarah's going to read an extract from her piece. She was one of the longest pieces, actually. Me and Natalie were like, it's like about 1,600 words. I was like, Sarah, I need to chop it down. Take some words. So, luckily, you have some amazing images, and it's a beautiful piece. And it's called Water for the Soul, but I'll let you carry on.
Thanks, Carmen. So I'll read a bit and then I'll talk a bit about it after. 5th of December 2019, 6 a.m. I'm warm and snug. Outside, a dark, silent winter morning. The trees in the park opposite my window move in the wind. They are my benchmark for the cold air. I want to stay put. My feelings have a duality about them. Grumpy, yet tenacious. Driven, yet reticent. My mind's at war with itself. I swing my legs out of bed. Think less, do more. A mantra borrowed from a friend. Tenacity and drive are in the lead. Grumpy and reticent get dragged along for the ride. I've committed to an icy dawn dip. Although a novice to icy waters, I've always swum. Since I jubilantly first launched myself 1 full width across a pool as a young girl. That moment of triumph is etched vividly into my memory. During the 70s and 80s, my sisters and I spent hours in the sea at Polzeath, North Cornwall, holding tightly onto our white polystyrene bodyboards, clad in swimming costumes only, legs rubbed red raw in the waves, churned around, momentarily scared, gasping for breath, and always going back for more. It was here in North Cornwall that my lifetime love of water truly began. Driving over the headland, listening to my dad's Moments compilation tape with tunes like God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, we'd ache and want to be the first one to call, I Can See the Sea. The excitement and wildness of it, the freedom it evoked, looking out of the window in anticipation of feeling the wind, sand, and salty water. At that moment, I wanted to be nowhere else. However, I'm a far cry from that hazy memory. The thought of that damn cold, wintry water is screaming at my mind to stay in my bed. But I'm going, and there's others coming too. My body's dutifully playing along despite its inner turmoil. I've got a camera and a tripod, swimming costume, swim socks and hat, warm clothes, and most essentially, perhaps my hot cup of tea. Clevedon's once desolate marine lake is our destination. We arrive, walk a short distance and perch on cold concrete. Placing hot drinks at the ready, we shed our warm clothes. Don't think, just do. Costumes on. Walk towards the steps. Grasp the cold metal rail. Move toes, shins, thighs into the lake's icy embrace. Keep going down, down into the water and kick. Oh, I've done it. Deep inhale, deep exhale. Breathe, breathe. So that's the end of the little extract of the bit that I've written. And to give you a little bit of background, I moved back to the West Country, to Bristol, a few years ago with my young family. And some friends and I, we started swimming together in the pool, mostly early mornings so that we could go to work or get our children to school. In winter, it was often dark when we left the pool. And we started training for our first outdoor event, which was a 6K swim in Devon. It was beautiful. And we spent a lot of time together at these crazy hours in the morning, and we'd seen each other in some quite, various states. We'd been through lots of things. This bunch of friends, two of them had lost parents. One of them was planning her wedding. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep because my third child decided she wasn't a sleeper and didn't really sleep till she went to school. So we'd see each other in various states. I was often running on adrenaline. We'd either be excited, nervous, sad, whatever. And it inspired me to document these lovely moments of raw, real, honest friendship. So I started randomly filming, and I didn't really know where to go with it. And a friend of mine, Mag, said, Sarah, why don't we just swim through the winter once a week, see what happens? And I didn't really want to do that, but I thought, yeah, I'll do it. And that was in September 2019. 4 of us started swimming. I thought we'd last a couple of months. We're still doing it now. We go in every week. The group's grown from 4 to 72 people from Bristol. We travel down to Cuerden. We don't all swim together yet, but we support each other. I don't know them all actually anymore, but a lovely, really positive, supportive WhatsApp group. And we went this morning, some of us, Natalie and I went. It was 7 degrees. I really didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in my bed. But I think importantly for me, the shock of the cold thrusts me into the present moment and into my body. And I've always been fascinated by that mind and body connection. I studied dance, I went to drama school, and I now teach yoga. So it's always been a big fascination for me. Last year, I wanted to find out how my fellow dippers felt. So I asked them to sum up succinctly in 3 words what they felt before they got in the water and what they felt after. And these are some of the words they shared with me over time. Before: apprehensive, uncertain, off balance, frazzled. I love that one. That's me sometimes.
That's life.
Yeah. Cloudy, nervous, scared, and tired. And here are some of the words they summed up for after: giddy, primal, clear, tingly, uplifted, shiny, sparkly, high, connected, pumped, supported, peaceful, and reset. I use these words to help write the article, and along with my friends Mags, we decided to restart this project a couple of weeks ago. So she's looking into the benefits with her company Open Minds with some academics and medics in Bristol, and looking about how they can use cold water immersion for on the NHS. I'm getting more addicted to the cold. I never thought I would. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship, but I feel more inspired and more connected to the seasons and nature. My relationship with winter has changed. I look forward to the peace of the lake and the quiet. I'm not so bothered if there's a spell of a few dull days. I'm a mum of 3. I work, And it's comforting to have that there so that I can just throw myself in when I get a bit stuck in my domestic week, just for a few moments. And just by simply moving myself towards those steps, regardless if I want to or not, once I get in and I lower myself in, I get reset and I can be me, you know.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Some of the chat, and I know there's Sue Anstis, there's Carey, who are big swimmers as well. So they might want to join you somewhere along the way, Sarah. But even hearing the words, right? I think I've done the first bit. I felt all the trepidation, nervous, and I've done it once in Windermere, where I jumped, but I was in and out in an instance on New Year's Day with a hangover. So I think I should make a promise to come down over Christmas, because I'm coming that way anyway, and we'll come and meet you for a swim. So
Please do.
thank you very much for beautifully explained, and for reading your article tonight, and for sharing that love of water, especially to look at it as a health benefit, right, for people as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to head over to Libby to introduce our next guest. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you. And our next lovely guest is Mac Macartney. Let me see, do I see Mac there? And from what I understand, Mac, Carmen told me that she met you when she saw you on Time of the Six Suns series, loved it, reached out to you, and the two of you had tea in your studio at Embercombe.
Yes.
And which, by the looks of it, is just delicious and yummy. I love, that's a real background, people. That is not a fake virtual. That is, God, that's lovely. So that's where the two of you originally connected and met. And firstly, I loved your article, Dusk, in Soulhub. And I loved your perspective on the current state of affairs. And obviously, a lot of that perspective came from your 20 years of work with the Native Americans. And I wanted to ask you, what was the catalyst that brought you to working with Native Americans? What was happening in your life prior to meeting them?
Well, thank you, Libby. When I look back on it now, it was the logical next step. I mean, 2 years old, 3 years old, up to 9 years old, living all the time as much as I could outdoors. Trees, swamp, forest, hills, always outdoors, tunneling underground with my friends, fires, melting lead and making coins, bows that could shoot arrows really long, far away, quite lethal. And just loving and exalting in nature and feeling connected and part of nature. And then enduring my education, which told me that all that was stupid and childish and should be left behind. And at the end of my, I guess, my 20s, reaching a collision between what was in my heart and what was in my dreams. And basically, thankfully, I chose my dreams. Actually, perhaps not least. I mean, I was in a car accident on the Isle of Anglesey, on the north of Wales. And in the inquest, it turned out that the woman who was driving the car had shouted at her lover just before she left the pub in a town a few miles away that she would kill herself on the next person that she saw. She got in her car and I was that next person, and she drove straight at me, full speed, coming around the corner almost on two wheels, and she died and I almost did. Mm. And I think that occasion, a series of profound encounters, climbing the mountains in Snowdonia and feeling called to take the step and speak on behalf and write on behalf and live on behalf of everything that I most deeply love, which is our Mother Earth, was the only thing that I could do and have done ever since.
Wow. I was not expecting that. Really, thank you for sharing that. My God, we could talk for hours. What I want to ask you is where the world is now. And there is sometimes when we look at the world, it seems like there is so much that is wrong with the world, or how we're handling Earth, how we're handling our fellow man, how we're interacting with the Earth and our fellow man. So when that can be so overwhelming at times. So based on your experience and what you've learned, what would you say are 3 things that we can do as individuals to help course correct?
Well, 3 things. I use these 3 questions a lot. What is it that you most deeply and profoundly love? And the emphasis is on deeply and profoundly. So what are the people that I have had the honor of being with in the last few months or weeks of their lives? What have they spoken of? And of course, it's not been their investments or their even much to do often with their work. It's rarely had to do with anything really, except people that they have loved. Moments in nature, exquisite moments of tenderness and connection, all things beautiful. So what is it that you most deeply and profoundly love? I think in the end defines sacredness for you. And then you say, that I would never betray. I must simply stand for. As one of my Native American mentors once said, kneel only to the rose. Meaning basically our Mother Earth. The second question, what are your deepest and most profound gifts? I think it's worth living this life on the hypothesis that when we were in our mother's wombs, creation whispered into our ear and said, I am planting a tiny little piece of my genius inside you, but I'm hiding it. Now it is your task to locate that little piece of my genius, bring it forward, grow it, and then most importantly, share it without embarrassment. And so the gifts. And the third question, what are my deepest and most profound responsibilities? Because we have responsibilities to our own self-care and to those immediately around us. But I would say it's like a pebble dropped in a lake. It just keeps traveling outwards. So it includes then neighbors and people. It includes land. It includes all other beings. It goes on to the children of Yemen and Syria and on around our world to every tortured and pained place in our earth, both human and more than human. I feel those 3 questions in the end, I think we all, when we've made that kind of journey, we end up with, if you like, both our hands outstretched and our hands cupped. In one hand we hold grief, and the other hand we hold joy. I can't hold with people saying that we should only walk with joy and not grief, because I have no wish to plug my ears and not hear the screams coming out of the Yemen. It's important for my humanity and for my empathy and compassion as a human being. And equally, if I lived only with that, then I wouldn't live very long. So in my other hand, I hold joy. And that joy is about recognizing the precious gift that every day brings us. That every spring that rolls by, the bluebells when they bloom in the woods here at Embercombe, the owls that are hooting outside that I heard when I popped out just before we began here, my little boy who I have rather late in my life, who's 4 years old, who shakes me awake in the morning, demanding that I get out of bed and engage with life, all these things. So tears and laughter wrapped together must be some kind of definition of what it means to be alive at this time.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Mac. That is the best holiday gift you could give all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And back to Carmen to introduce our lovely Romanian friend.
Unmute myself. Thank you. That would help, wouldn't it? Thank you both, Libby and Mac. I've nearly had tears today, and I'm having some laughter now, Mac. So hopefully, if I can fit those emotions in the next 24 hours, then I'm on to a winner. So our next guest, Andra, and I met on the Camino de Santiago. That picture of her there is a classic picture of Andra as she walks down the streets of those Spanish pilgrim walked towns and villages, all the way, for those who don't know, from Saint Jean in the Pyrenees over to Santiago. And if, like Andra, you haven't had enough, then you might continue through to Finisterre on the coast. She was my translator on my mini trip. We only had a few days together. She was brave and walked the whole shebang. I've got much more to go back and finish. I've got halfway, so I've still got to go back. But the best thing about the Camino, many people go for different reasons. There's a lot of people looking for healing. It obviously is a pilgrim walk in itself. I think at the time I went originally to travel and to meet others, and it's one of the most profound experiences in that you don't quite know what it's going to throw at you. And as we talked to Andra, you kind of realize that actually it's not even of that moment. Sometimes it can be felt a long time after. So the seeds, as Andrew talked about around intention, the kind of seeds can be sown on those dusty paths. So thank you, Andra, for coming in from Romania, for joining us this evening. I also want to add, actually, when we first met, I think I was walking with a South African lady who walked about 10 times quicker than me. And there was, I pretty much ran away from her because I just thought, I just can't bear the speed of it. And then I saw you, and you were slow and just kind of like you're just meandering away, and we'd stop and we'd kind of just chat, and we'd be there for an hour, and we'd be like, should we get walking again? And I was like, this is a girl I'm going to walk with.
Definitely, I was walking very slow.
Well, it'd been 2 weeks for you, right?
Yes, when we met, yes, already.
Yeah.
In total, I made like 37 days. I mean, the 800 kilometers, it took me that much. But I really took the time also during the day to enjoy the views and stop at every cafe to take breakfast 1, breakfast 2, breakfast 3. Until 10, we would be stopping like 3 or 4 times.
But you made me realize that there is nowhere to go. Does it matter whether we walk 3K, 5K, 10K? And it's honestly something that I use a lot in my soul walking now. It's like, it doesn't matter. You know, just in like life, right? Just enjoy the journey and enjoy the meandering and whatever shows up. If you're going too quick, you miss it.
Exactly. And especially on the Camino, there are a lot of hidden things or treasures that are for, like, there is something for everybody. There might be something that it doesn't have any meaning for me, but it's there. And it might be something that it has a very strong impact for me, but it's a very small thing, a very small detail, like a small house full with old pilgrims stuff left. There you find a lot of these things on the way. And I found most of them just by walking by very slowly, taking time to talk with the people that we met on the way, and listening a lot to gather the information that I felt the universe was trying to send me on this path, and what I had to learn on it.
Because what I found interesting in your article is that you talked about kind of the nightmare You thought it was going to be dreamlike, and it actually felt like a nightmare before you left. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I first read a book from Paulo Coelho, The Pilgrim, where he was talking about his experience walking the Camino. That was in high school, so it took me like 10 years until I actually went on the Camino, but it was one of my dreams to do it. And it always felt like a huge adventure, something that I really, really wanted to experience. And when I actually bought the ticket to go, all my dream just started to feel like so much like a nightmare. I started to feel so much fear around this experience, knowing that I will be going alone, and kind of the fear took over my love for what I wanted to do. And so it took me a few weeks of a lot of meditation, a lot of like being very present with my feelings, to be able one morning, a few days before I actually left, to just wake up and really be excited to go and not be scared that I might be stuck in the woods or sleeping in the woods one night.
And in terms of kind of then what it delivered, I know your article, when I asked you about writing, you kind of said almost like you felt like the process hadn't finished for you, which is why you wrote about almost the fear before and not necessarily how the walk went itself. So it's, you know, since then things have changed for you. You were living in France at the time, and now you're back in Romania. Tell us a bit about kind of almost, I guess, that sentiment that felt like, you know, that was planted along those paths.
Yes, we said a lot with other pilgrims on the way that the Camino gives you exactly what you need, even if sometimes it's not what you want and not what you expect. So I expected to show me exactly my path and exactly what I should do and my purpose. I thought I will discover this, but instead I had a really great time, a great walk. And on the way, in the last 100 kilometers, my boyfriend at the time joined me, and we thought it's going to be a great experience together. But actually it was there where I think things started not to work so well.
Yeah.
And until that point, our relationship was perfect. We didn't have any discussions, and it was there where everything started to come out. And actually after a few days, we decided to walk separately and just meet in the last day. So this is not exactly what I was expecting to find out.
You're going to have a romantic couple of weeks together.
Yes. And even though our relationship continued for another year and a half after that, it was not so sudden.
Yeah.
I see now, looking back, how this truth that we are not necessarily meant to be together the whole path, it already showed up there for the first time.
Yeah.
But I was not ready maybe then to fully accept it. And also our relationship was not yet to the point where we could really let go.
I guess, as you say, it's almost be careful what you wish for, right? And the path will kind of show something up, you know, and maybe it amplifies it rather than obviously it taking a few more years to kind of materialize that. Actually, it's thrown you into the midst at the time. Thank you for joining us this evening, all the way from
Thank you.
Thank you for translating.
Thank you for all the great guests and stories.
All right, take care. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andra. So our next guest is a gentleman called Lloyd Camp. Lloyd is an author and safari guide, but not just a normal safari guide. He is an exceptional safari guide. And I mean that because not just he's smiling at me, not just because he's paid me to say it, because your attention to detail, Lloyd, and more than that, I kind of say you're a soul man. You feel the land, you feel the animals, and it's kind of it's a magical place to be with you in the bush, and to see you fully step into the man that you are when you're there. So, and that comes through fully in your storytelling and in your books. And so Lloyd has been hosting the Campfire Tales with Soulhub once a month for the last 9 months or so. It's a fantastic evening where we come together, we pretend we're in a campfire, one day we will be, and he recounts many of the tales over the last 35 years with us. So thank you, Lloyd. I know, you're joining from back in South Africa, from Petersburg, Pietersmaritzburg. It's an India.
Peterborough.
Thank you for joining, and you're just going to share with us one of the poems. Actually, you've written 2 poems for the journal, but one of your poems you're going to share with us.
Yeah, I'll just to give you a very brief background. Thanks, Carmen. It's fantastic to be here. Some of the stuff that Mac talked about really resonated with me, and I just absolutely love being in the wilderness. And I've been privileged to be in the most wildest places in the world, especially in Africa. And I get a huge thrill out of taking people there and just unlocking that thing, interpreting it for them. Huge kick out of doing that. So I've written some stories.
And you must find it quite hard to be locked down.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. but it's given me the opportunity to write some books. So, no, I haven't enjoyed, but I've managed to get back out of Africa just a few days ago, and so and it feels good. But for those of you who don't know, I live in Richmond, and that's in London now, and that's kind of what that poem was about. It's actually a poem of joy. I'll read it shortly, but it's I'm not really a poet. I don't really write poetry. I write short stories. But that poem popped into my head at about 2 or 3 in the morning, perfectly formed exactly the way I'm going to read it out this evening. And it happened because I was living in Namibia at the time, which is an absolutely unbelievable country, great for wildlife and open vistas and true wilderness. But unfortunately, I'd lost my job basically. I'd run into conflict with my boss, and I wasn't able to get a work permit, and I'd been retrenched, and there was this massive shift going on. And Sue and I were moving to London, and I hadn't figured out at that point that I'd make just as many good friends in London and as many great connections and find soul hub people, soulmates. I didn't know that. It was all a bit of a rude awakening.
But most of your stories just pop in your head.
What do you mean? No, they're all based on experience, but the poem just popped up.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting that you normally write short stories, and here you are, your 2 published pieces with us are poems. And whether you feel that there's more poetry to come out, or whether
probably, I probably haven't given it the time because I'm so focused on writing the stories, But the reason the poem's interesting is important to me, and the reason I put it at the start of the book, when I wrote it, that wasn't the intention. It was a standalone piece. And then when I wrote the book of short stories, I suddenly realized that it was the perfect introduction because it represented sort of joy and hope and a recognition of change before I actually moved to London. And it's based around the fact that I thought that I was losing friends forever. I made some tremendous friends. The African people are so welcoming and brilliant company. And I thought all of that was gone. And my best friend in Namibia was moving to Canada at the same time I was moving to the UK. I was really depressed about all of that. He and I used to go riding our bicycles all day, and I have a huge thrill in riding a bike in nature. That was all swept away. The rug was pulled from under my feet, and it was pretty depressing. I didn't quite know what was going to happen. I mean, I didn't know that it was all going to work out so well. You just got to have the joy and the hope. It comes with experience, I think. Yeah. And I'd been to a party with him that evening before, what we call a braai or a barbecue in South Africa. And I was depressed when I came home because I figured it was the last time I'd ever see the guy. He's a really good friend. And then I woke up at 2 or 3 in the morning and I'd written a poem for him. So I wrote it out and I sent it to him the next morning. And the poem was all about, actually, there's lots of good, kind people out there, and that there's no reason for us to be disconnected at all. And we're not.
Did you share the poem with him?
Yeah, immediately, like that morning.
Okay.
You know, and I said to him, I just had this recognition. And so I'll read it to you now. You might recognize a certain style. I was very influenced. At the time, I was reading an author called Cormac McCarthy, who's he's an American modern Western writer. A lot of his stuff is set in the 30s and 40s, actually. And his most famous book is called All the Pretty Horses. And he writes in a very spare, tense kind of way. He allows your imagination to do all the work. He doesn't over-describe things. And all of his stuff set in a harsh landscape. And it was, I was in Namibia, which is a harsh landscape too. So I was quite influenced by his style, and I think it reflects in this poem.
Would you like to read it?
Yeah, here we go. It's called Ever Thus, and the subtitle to the poem is A Poem for Sunrise, as opposed to sunset. Tonight, I'm a sweated up vaquero, sitting a slack-ribbed horse on a slaty ridge, pointed into a hard wind, a torn hat hiding the look in my eyes, and the horse unwilling. Too much time for thinking, and too little, contemplating the nature of all things. Then, as the red sun leavens the outer edge of the earth, I find that the leaving brings a hard-earned understanding, eventually, that all you know and all whom you love are always yours, and you theirs. And so I put the horse at the sun. Thanks, Carmen.
Beautiful. Thank you. Just one quick question.
Yeah.
What do you miss most about Africa?
Space, I think, just, you know, broad vistas and the pleasure of just wildlife. I mean, today I was working in my office and there were monkeys eating the fruit in the trees outside, and there's just something absolutely thrilling about how natural all that is.
Well, almost in your, you know, the poetry around kind of you take it with you. It's the same, you know, same with the essence of Africa, right? It's still there with you wherever you are.
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
have to light it every now and again.
Yeah, and that's another hard understanding, is that just because you go and live in England, and I've been there for 10 years, doesn't mean that you leave Africa behind. You know, it's all inside you anyway. All of that's inside you. It's in your head. And the great thing about writing those stories was that the moment you start to put your thoughts down, you move to where the story is, and everything around you ceases to exist. And you can write for hours and hours. You're completely absorbed in that moment. And suddenly hours have gone by and you suddenly recognize where you're actually sitting. It's wonderful. Everything's in your head. And I don't think you lose anything. I don't think you lose any of the emotion, the feeling that you have when you're out in the bush. It's all stored there and it's ready for you. You just got to access it.
Right, I'm on a flight tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Get out here, people.
Thank you, Lloyd. I appreciate you taking the time for us and writing twice. You know, only you and Laura Beckingham have made it double entries into the
really?
Yes.
Well, you know, I was fortunate to meet you early when I got to Richmond, and you've been incredibly influential, a wonderful friend, and I want to thank you for Soulhub and for who you are as well.
Yeah, thank you, darling. Enjoy your Christmas, and we'll be in touch when you get back.
Thank you.
Lloyd. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. So from Africa to New Zealand, you can see by the attire that Mark is sporting in that picture. It tells a little bit of a tale about how we met, actually. So Mark and I was working for Musto, the sailing and adventure brand. And I actually remember, Mark, it was on Christmas Eve, and talking to you when you were in the depot, loading the ship off to on your expedition. And I was extremely jealous that I was stuck in the office, but you did put a huge smile on my face, even though you were panicking about where your kit came. But once your kit came, you were obviously much more at peace. And off you went on this incredible expedition to Antarctica to record the sound. So it's in, you know, how many years? Probably like 7 years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe 6, 7 years ago. Sounds about right. Yeah.
7 years since you've since you stood on the freezing cold ice glaciers of Antarctica. So just before you start, tell us a little bit more about it. I wanted to play the recording that you did, which is of the story that you've written in the Soulhub journal. So we're just going to play that. Someone is.
Recording the sounds of icebergs in Antarctica is one of those outlying opportunities that is hard to have anticipated, let alone prepare for, and the effect it had on me I could have not imagined. But as our chartered vessel, Australis, skippered under the stoically capable watch of Roger Wallas, sets off across the Drake Passage en route to the Antarctic Peninsula, I realised that over 2 years of planning has come to fruition.
As you know, the weather is not really ideal, far from ideal. It's about 40, 50 knots tonight, and there will be apparently 10 metre sea.
Working alongside artist Joseph Michel and realising his vision to bring these natural wonders into an urban environment using state-of-the-art projection mapping has certainly been one of my more unique opportunities. Mixing my two favourite things in life, water and sound, I take my producer hat off and securely fasten that of sound recordist as our 9-strong team arrive from New Zealand at the Antarctic Peninsula in February 2015.
How is that to listen back? I think you're on mute. You're going to unmute you. How is that to listen back?
Yeah, great. Yeah, awesome. So kia ora everybody. Tēnā koe, and you're calling in here from Tamaki Makaurau, Aotearoa, Auckland, New Zealand. And just up front, just like to recognise the mahi and the work that you put into that expedition for us, Carmen, because your involvement logistically was crucial, being able to get that equipment and taking the time and care for us to be able to actually have the right equipment down there, but also the belief that you had in doing that. So I just want to recognise that here today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Well, those photos actually, you know, the pieces within the journal are the ones obviously that you took, and at the time it was, you know, Musto's kind of trade exchange, right? But it was more than that, you know, to even, I mean, I was saying today, just, you know, I was kind of giving you kit thinking, I want to be on that adventure, you know, kind of kickstarted something in me, which not long after, you know, I was on my own world trip. So, you know, there's always in these conversations, something's kind of, you know, something is exchanged, right? That's just more than giving you, you know, jackets that obviously, as you say, plays quite significance into keeping you warm down there. But so you talk about sound and water being your two favorite things. What was it like to be there? Yeah,
it was just otherworldly. I really couldn't have anticipated what the environment would be like, both to be down there visually and what I was going to experience sonically, and the impact that would have on how I view the world, and how it's affected my life. It was so there's lots of elements to it all. We were down there to celebrate the life down there and to capture these icebergs and bring them to urban environments so other people could enjoy them, projection mapping them onto notable buildings around the world. And to be honest, I hadn't had any grand aspirations of visiting Antarctica. I thought it was probably going to be a really harsh and stark place, and in a lot of ways it is, but it's absolutely teeming with life. It is. I've been to Africa. It was fabulous to hear from Lloyd, and it felt like Africa is the birthplace of man, but there was something just timeless about Antarctica. It feels like some sort of origin story for us, because it really is absolutely just heaving with energy and with life. So that was really quite life-changing. And there was a really bittersweet sense of being down there. So my job post-production of getting us down there was to be the sound recordist and to record these, what I thought would be sounds of icebergs, but they became voices. You know, each iceberg really had a story that it was telling, and that was just, that was something I really hadn't anticipated. so there was this bittersweet sense of capturing something that is a natural phenomenon, but also we know that we're accelerating it as mankind. So that sat with me quite heavily at times.
Mm.
But there was also this glorious sense of resilience down there. I mean, there's a really checkered history of mankind attempting to supposedly conquer the parts of Antarctica and varying degrees of success. So they certainly haven't conquered it, but success looks like not dying, really. So, and a few of them have done that, and some incredible stories. But the sense of robustness was really enheartening, and this idea that we can't control Mother Nature completely. It is incredibly resilient, and it doesn't need us down there. So it really allowed me to actually feel quite enheartened by experiencing that.
Does it, just listening to you say that, did it feel invasive then? If it says it doesn't feel, if you don't feel like they need you down there, did your trip feel invasive?
Yeah, it was a respectful trip though. We were down there with Roger Wallas, who's been he's seasoned down there, but he's been sailing down there for over 20 years. It was an incredibly respectful trip.
Mm.
So we felt really cued in to the environment. So at times, yeah, I felt a little bit out of place and a little bit voyeuristic, but we're also, down there minimizing our impact and using that opportunity to tell a story and to bring this narrative to other people.
Yeah. So just to explain to people, as you said, it's kind of, you recorded the sounds as projections then to go on to buildings around the world. So you first put it in Auckland on the War Memorial Building. How was it to bring your work back into an urban environment?
Yeah, that was stunning. That was great. I mean, the visual elements are obvious. Maybe you'd think about an iceberg just being, overwhelmingly large and incredible. So we, for the Auckland Museum, it's a big building. They have like 26 projection mapping cameras around it, bringing it all to life, animating it, moving and cracking. And then we had all of these surround sound speakers and subs around the outside of it, and all of that stuff coming to life. And I think more than the visuals, even a large amount of people were just mesmerized by that, because it's incredibly boisterous. There's such a range of sounds, high frequencies and pops and sizzles and low frequencies. So we brought in some of the elements that I called of carving and collapsing down there, and we were scaring small children at times. It was there was a highly immersive and really emotional to experience that in that setting.
I guess you're listening to you talk, it's almost like I can't imagine where else you could go, where you could better that.
Yeah. I mean, that was the idea, right? And unless you're down in Antarctica, this is the closest you can get. And it was, to be fair, a really comparable experience.
And so where does that lead you to now? Well,
I'm still telling this 5 years, it turns out, wasn't it? 5.5 years later, I'm still talking about, people still want to talk about icebergs. So that's where I am at. And I have the opportunity to talk to people here and to be part of Soulhub. And yeah, more people want to hear about the recordings. The exhibition has made its way to the UN building earlier in the year, part of the Climate Summit. So that was a really powerful piece of work. And Joseph, who's the artist, the visionary really behind this, he's doing a piece on the Amazon now, which is super powerful.
Yeah.
And
I get with him.
Say again.
You're not going with him to the Amazon?
No, well, that's he's had to do a lot of it. He managed to get some of it before lockdown. So yeah, that's a little bit. So he has got some content, but it's a little bit on hold now. Obviously, in the current COVID climate. I actually recently had a heavy metal band do this band called Cuerden, which do this no vocalist, this beautifully intricate, soundscapey, heavy, emotional music. Asked me to collaborate on a song with the sound recordings. So that's a
Very
really
done. Long live the sounds of the icebergs. I love the way you describe that they have voices, you know,
Yeah.
just how individual. I mean, I've just, I was lucky to go down to Patagonia and hear the icebergs there and get up close enough, but not like you to be immersed in it and to be listening to that as well.
Yeah, they really did have voices. I just really couldn't have, no one could have anticipated it. I don't think many people have done this before. So turning microphone to the first iceberg, I thought my equipment was buggered, to be honest. I was like, oh, I'm a bit too far away now to get this prepared. So, yeah.
Or drop it in the water, right?
Yeah. Like, oh, that didn't work out, but no, it was fine. It sounded like it was phasing, but it was just this beautiful raspy, velvety sound of the ocean lapping against this iceberg, and every iceberg was completely different depending on its makeup or its consistency and how long it had been in the water. So all sorts of things that really gave it a unique voice that I was able to tap into. And because the equipment is so sensitive, you know, I'm able to get really, really close to them, but also just capture things from quite far away at really high volumes. And these just, glorious intricacies with all of them. That,
Well, thank you, Mark. We will share the full recording, so people can listen to it after you. But thank you for dialing in early morning. Have an amazing day, and for being part of Soul Hub for the last 5 years and staying connected. So it's much appreciated.
Thank you. My absolute pleasure. Have a great day and evening, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
We're heading back over to Libby to introduce a very special man. Thank you, Libby.
Well, he is very special, isn't he, Carmen? I okayed this yesterday with the two of them. I think one of the most extraordinary things that has come out of Soul Hub, one of the many, many extraordinary things, is that Carmen and Andrew met, and that's Andrew Cuerden, and they are a couple. So Soul Hub is just bursting with love. It's just rippling out all over the globe.
Right, it's his space.
Hi, Andrew. So as many of you may know, and if you don't know Andrew Cuerden is a Latin and ballroom professional. If you are living in the UK, you might know him from, that little show called Strictly. And he was a professional dancer for 20 years and now teaches in London. He is fascinated with the intricacies of dance, and his article, Life is a Dance, was one of my favorites. Life, a Dance of Energies, from Soul Hub. And Andrew, in that piece, I love how open and vulnerable you were in your written piece. And I wanted to ask you, how did dance come into your life? How did it enter your life? And how has it helped you become who you are today?
Okay, so I guess I grew up in South Africa, which is obviously a very patriarchal, rough, tough kind of culture, really. And so for most of my youth, I felt a bit like a round peg in a square hole, a little bit, because I was incredibly shy, sensitive, emotional, kind of almost, and almost in a romantic from a very early age as well. So to fit into that culture was a little bit weird. But my saving grace was my mum and sister, who were very, very musical and arty. And so I was brought up around musicals. So everything from King and I, West Side Story, Grease, you name it, was exposed to me. Plus also my mum and my sister are both pianists, piano teachers. So yeah, always music around the house. And then I guess when I was 8 years old, my sister at her 21st birthday party dragged me kicking and screaming onto a dance floor. And what she didn't realize is that I'd still be dancing. I went around, I think, asked every single available woman in the party to come dance with me from then on. Signs of things to come, I think. But that was the kind of stuff. And then 2 years later, when I was 10, Dirty Dancing came out. And a little bit like Strictly, it got a lot of people dancing, and my sister started doing it, not surprisingly. But then 2 guys in my class started doing it. I thought, well, if you guys are brave enough to do it, then I'm going to go along and give it a go. I was being bullied anyway, so I thought, well, I can't get far worse. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning. What was the second part of the question?
How has it help you develop who you are today?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because I think, one of the things I really strongly believe in life is that it's not what you do that matters, it's who you become in the process. So I think that's a really valid question. And I guess it's given me the courage and confidence to be myself, because I grew up, as the baby of the family in a very sort of colonial Victorian style upbringing, where children were best seen best seen and not heard. So there was always this element of me not feeling like I could really express myself freely or being seen. So all of a sudden I was finding myself in a space and on a platform that then gave me the freedom and the permission to express myself more deeply. And then the passion for my dancing gave me the courage to pursue my dreams, which meant leaving South Africa, leaving everything behind, coming out here on my own with £500 a week travel card, and following my dreams. And I can definitely vouch that dreams do come true if you really stick to them. So, and I guess, just a deeper awareness of myself, I guess. It's a real self-development tool, and this is why I'm now evolving my work into more self-development work, because I just believe it's the most powerful tool for, I think Mac was saying, what do you deeply love? And if you devote yourself to that, your natural self, your gift comes out, and that's been kind of my journey. Not always a pleasant journey, but a journey.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's had a completely pleasant journey. The other thing I really want to note that in your piece, you talked about your saving grace has always been what you call an awareness and relationship with this infinitely creative source, energy, or divine, God, source, whatever you want to call it. That's obviously a really big part of your life and your journey. So please tell us a little more about that. How did that awareness come into your life? How does it show up in your life now? And do you notice when you're in flow with it or in flow out, if you're not in flow with it, if you're in or out of flow with this divine?
I guess it's sort of from a very early age through my mum and a quite alternative Christian religion, which I won't name for various reasons, but it certainly opened my mind to thinking outside the box, and in a very metaphysical way, through energy. It wasn't Scientology, just putting it out there, but very sort of energetic based, and and a deep understanding or appreciation or belief in a benevolent God or a benevolent creator. And that, if you align with that, if you have faith in that, then you are, you seem to flow more with life. And so that was kind of instilled in me at a very early age. And then as I've been sort of moving through my life, calibrating, and dancing with life, knowing that when I'm pushing against something, when I'm trying too hard, or I'm moving from my head and my brain rather than trusting my body, my guts, that is when I've come out of balance or out of alignment, what I call. Okay, so I work with all these sort of terminologies, like Andrew was saying, intention, alignment, flow, all these kind of energetic things, because essentially, everything in the universe is energy, right? Whether it's a rock or a plant or an animal, everything has this life force that's beating through it, and so everything has this natural energetic flow, and you either line up with it and harness it, or you kind of almost, butt up against it. So, I guess, not everyone, I struggle to sometimes use the word God, because I know it's quite a triggering word for people. I don't have this visualization of some guy up on a cloud somewhere or whatever, but it's just this infinite intelligence, and governing thing, which now I don't know. I think I don't even believe it's necessarily benevolent or malevolent. I think it just is expressing itself through us and kind of giving us that free will, and it's down to us to kind of create our future, create our lives through really deliberate imagining and intention and love, I guess, is the next ingredient.
Right on, and love, for sure. We'll keep letting it flow through you and dance through you. And thank you, Andrew. Thank you for all the best, and all the best in the next evolution of your work. And thank you for all the work you're doing with others. Keep spreading that love. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm back. Thank you, Libby. I thought it would be a nice thing for you to talk to Andrew and bring something different from him. So it was lovely to listen to you both talk as well. So we've got 3 more. I know some of you might be thinking we're at 8:30. So hopefully you've got nowhere to go anyway. So sit back. We've got 3 more amazing guests to finish our evening off. I've been seeing some kind of texts and messages. I'm trying not to look at it, but I'm saying, how do I get the journal? So there is a QR code at the end that you can snap on your screen, and you can order it. Oh, there you go. See, someone's listening to me. You can snap it now if you want to, and put your order in for the journal. It is 360 pages. It's full color, and it's, you know, it's a lifetime's work for many of for people to share those stories. So click away. And in the meantime, I think she's here. Simone, yes, I saw you've already ordered yours. Thank you. Huma, I haven't seen her, but obviously I can't see you, so I'm expecting that she's on the other end in a moment. But I listened to Huma last year. She spoke at Dylan Allahu's Awaken weekend, and Huma brought the room to life and brought me to tears as she did some spoken word. And I was really touched that this 21-year-old, it was the mother in me, could, you know, I'm worried enough tonight doing this, and here she stood in front of a room of people and just spoke very much from the heart. And as I said, it moved me. So I went straight up to her and said, Huma, would you write for the Soulhub? By the way, I'm Carmen. And she started crying. and then I started crying, and I was like, oh my God. So all right, you've got to write. So she's written a beautiful piece for us. And so I just want to say hello firstly. Hi, Huma.
Hello, Carmen. Hello, everyone.
Thanks so much for coming. You rock. I just saw a note. Completely rock.
Thank you, Rachel.
So just around your piece, because obviously anyone's yet to get the journal, how would you best explain the piece that you've written for us?
There's only one word for it. Life, really. The title is Following Fear, and I have been scared of pretty much everything and everyone since I was a kid, and I thought there would be a day where I would stop being scared of everything. And that piece kind of well, yeah, I'm still waiting. And that piece kind of shows that I have to do it while being scared. It's about standing up there, like on that weekend, and speaking your truth, saying what you need to say, even when your heart is pounding. But then deep down, you know it's the right thing to do, but still doing it anyway. And I feel like that shows up in life in so many ways, and almost in everything. So yeah, it's mostly about that. It's about realizing that fear is your best friend, and it's just telling you where you need to go, even if you're too scared to go there. It means you have to go, because maybe there's a lesson you need to learn, or maybe there's love you've yet to feel. That's what it means.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm still blown away that you're, I know it sounds a bit derogatory to say you're only 21. There's an old soul with you.
22 now.
22, sorry. Tim just had a birthday last week. Happy birthday. But
Thank
maybe your
you.
souls have many lifetimes, I think. You know, and it's incredible, right? To have that perspective already in life. And so, you know, to allow life to unfold for you in a very powerful and conscious way. So you're completely choosing and creating and manifesting and not afraid of the fear, or at least embracing, as you say, as part of life, and embracing the fear, which is guiding you along the way. So you know, there's so many questions I can ask you, but does it, you know, since that moment that you stood up, is that probably one of the scariest things that you feel that you've done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that, but I felt like I needed to do that. And I didn't know how. I never know how anything happens. But I feel like it was meant to happen. And when I was there, I could feel my heart shaking. And my heart is also pounding right now. Like, no matter how many times I do it, it always feels like it's the first time. It's the first day of doing something I've never done before, even though I have. And I think that's like it's like a reminder that I'm alive. Because I guess if I don't feel that, like, that fear in me, or my heart pounding, but still doing it anyway, then it's like maybe I was never alive, or maybe I was just floating by, you know, on autopilot.
So I don't know if you heard Mac earlier talking about kind of tears and laughter, you know, and what it is to feel alive. And here you are kind of exploring that. So in terms of writing the piece, how did you get to that point to feel those emotions and actually sit and write?
It felt freeing. It felt like that was the day, like that moment of me sitting there and writing everything onto that one page was the day that I was kind of like dreaming of my entire life. And it sounds quite silly, but like when I was writing it out, it was just like every single day, every up and every down of this journey just got summarized down to one thing: my relationship to fear. And I didn't realize that until I wrote it. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then you left it on the page. But
Yeah,
to share that with others, right? I mean, that's the power of what you do, you know, in your spoken word, and how you move people in the room, and then to be able to feel those feelings, and actually, you know, really powerful to be able to speak it and to be able to write it. And for me or whoever else to help share, bring that out to the world so others can learn from what you're learning is incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you for being part of the collective, for being vulnerable, even here this evening, and to keep showing up and teaching us how to embrace the fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you. Okay, our penultimate guest. We met in a cafe in Wandsworth. As we sat down, I think Mark Owen from Take That sat on the table next to us. And the lady who introduced us ran over with the journal and said, "Can I take a picture? Can I take a picture?" And so he took it away, and whoever knows where it ends up. But it was a magical moment to spend with Lynne, and I knew instantly that I needed to go and spend a little bit more time with her and actually feel the work that she does. So Lynne is a facial and jaw therapist, and when you go and be with her in her space, it's an out of body experience, I guess is the best way I can explain it, Lynne. Fully trust you with my body, and to lie there and just allow you to work your magic on me and on many other people. I didn't realize you could get your hands up into so many parts of my face. And then from that moment, I asked Lynne to join the team, and she's been an incredible part of the Soulhub team for the last couple of years. And Lynne has written about her own personal journey in the collective, and it's been some journey, hasn't it, Lynne?
Certainly has, yeah.
Could you, I mean, it's quite a hard thing to summarize, right? The how many ever years, but how would you bring your article to life?
Well, I mean, it was really difficult writing the article because I'm not really a writer, and to compress a lot of information into a short thing was quite difficult. So I have had breast cancer for since 2008, and I was clear for about 4 years, and then in 2013 my breast cancer came back, and I had a bit of a journey that time, got involved in visualization. I had, the cancer came back in my chest. I had a chest drain, which I used visualization to visualize the cells moving and going away. And I used to meditate every day and visualize. And it took 9 months, but it worked, and I got the tube removed. But I actually only asked the cancer to go to sleep, and I thought that was all I could get. And then I kind of carried on with my healthy lifestyle, and almost kind of didn't really forget about it. It was like something sitting on my shoulder that was, someone's described it as having a gun pointing at your head, and you never know when someone's going to pull the trigger. So there was a lot of fear around it. And I also kind of had to let go of thinking about the cancer, because I knew I wanted to find love and be a bit normal. So I did, and for a while. And then about 3 years ago, I kind of forgot about dates now, but about 3 years ago, I was with my son, and we were in the Alps, and I went there to climb a mountain. I climbed a mountain the year before, and we had an amazing time swimming at a mountain lake. So I've done my cold water swimming. And this time I went, and I couldn't even walk up a hill. I was so breathless. And so I just knew instinctively that my cancer had come back. So I went to the doctors and had the scans, and I think my son was with me when I went to the doctor, and he was kind of going over and over about, you know, more drugs and everything. And I was kind of glazing over. And then all of a sudden he said something about, you must, you know, have to think about how you might have to change your expectations of your life. And I suddenly remembered that after this aborted attempt to climb a mountain, my son had sent me this amazing photograph of him and his mates in this beautiful place in the mountains. And they stayed in a mountain lodge, and I said to him, that's amazing. And he said, I'm going to take you. And I just said to the doctor, I can't, you know, I've got a mountain to climb. And it was at that moment that I suddenly realized that I couldn't accept what the doctors were saying to me. So I went away, and I already had heard of a guy, David Hamilton. And then through him, I found, well, synchronicity. I learned about Joe Dispenza, and who says that if you visualize your future and believe it and feel it, then your brain doesn't know the difference. So it was kind of my only chance, really, because I wasn't scared of dying. I was scared of not being alive, and what Huma was saying about, you know, just needing to be alive. So I've meditated twice a day. I had some fluid taken away from my lungs so I could fly to Australia, but every day I was walking slower, and I breathing was getting harder, and they wanted me to put the tube back in, but I was terrified of having it back in because I thought that would be the decline, the end of my life. So I resisted and resisted, And then finally, I had no choice because I could hardly breathe in or out. But I was still working. I was still going into London, and it would take me 4 attempts to go up the stairs of the tube, and people would stop me and say, "Are you okay?" Because I kind of looked okay,
Yeah.
And anyway, in the end, I had no choice. So I had the tube put back in, and I was still visualizing, and I'd booked to go and see Joe Dispenza in Edinburgh, and that was the most amazing weekend. And it all culminated in a year after the aborted attempt to climb a mountain. Me and my 2 kids went to Zermatt, and with the view of the Matterhorn ahead of us, we climbed our mountain. And I still get shivers. I still get shivers all over my body.
Yeah, you can hear it in your voice.
I visualized this moment so many times.
Yeah.
And I'd visualized how it would feel. I could feel the chill on my skin. I'd visualized the bright blue sky and the sun shining. I even visualized the laughter and tears we would have when we got there. I visualized exactly the moment I would see the lodge in the distance, and I could even taste the Aperol spritz that me and my daughter were going to have, and I wasn't sure what my son was going to have. And it was on the walk, on the morning of our walk, it was cloudy and raining, and I thought, no, this can't be right. But eventually in the afternoon, the sun came out, and as the defining moment was, I turned a corner and I could see the lodge, and I couldn't speak. I was like in a meditation in another world. And I felt that all of a sudden I walked away from my body and left the cancer behind. And before, I'd always asked the cancer to leave me, or to sit with me and not get in the way of my life. This time I felt that, okay, we've been together long enough now. Now it's my time to live. And it was a very, very emotional experience, and amazing to spend it with my kids. And so far, so good.
9
months later, I had 4 litres of fluid taken out of my lung, by the way. And then I had the tube taken out. 4. I lost a few pounds, which was good.
What, with the lung, with the fluid? Wow, yeah. Well, at least you didn't have to carry that up the mountain. Hey?
No, thank goodness. I wouldn't have made that.
No, but I mean, that's, you've just summarized that incredibly. And, there's so much to kind of unpick, but, just to, well, as you said, to climb your own mountain, right? But just the power of visualization, and how much, and I guess what I hear is almost, as you said, you asked the cancer to go to sleep before, and then you were kind of like, okay, I'm actually done. I've had enough of this, and I can see you now just stepping up into the mountain, into the blue sky. Incredible.
And I'm not scared of it anymore. I left the fear behind on that mountain as well. And the amazing thing that came out of it is feeling death. I looked death in the eye, and I thought, well, I'm okay with death. I just don't want to not live. And but to experience now the joy of being alive, it truly is a gift. And it's here to just be a joy every day.
Yeah. And there's real commonalities in all of these stories, right? Just around, again, kind of holding the grief, and holding that experience for you, as life experience, to as painful as it is, what it's taught you.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly not scared of COVID. That's one thing.
There's a lot of people who are.
I know. I'm very aware.
Yeah, and the difference. So that's 9 months ago, and I guess, do you use visualization in the same way?
A year ago now.
Sorry, a year ago. Yeah.
My visualizations aren't as vivid, but I still I still do. I've been struggling to visualize actually during the COVID, and then I was getting married, and that got postponed, and then it got cancelled, and all ended, and so I was really struggling to, because the future planned totally disappeared. And so I'm just about getting my head above the ground now, where I can start looking. And I've got a whole new future to visualize, which is starting to feel a little bit exciting now. So.
Because I guess it's, there's this balance, right, of the visualization and the creation, but also the uncertainty that we're living with.
Yeah.
And how you hold those both things.
Exactly. And we we've got to leave it open to spontaneity. And
yeah. One quick question, because I can kind of see you. How was it on the top of the mountain when you sat there with your son and daughter?
Oh, it was amazing. And it was yeah. Well, when they videoed me actually coming round, and I made a little kind of speechy thing, but I couldn't really speak. It was so emotional. It was so special to be there with them, especially Felix, who'd inspired the whole story. And that's not to discount my daughter, but it was, it wouldn't have been right without them too. It was just perfect.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we should raise our glasses, if anyone's still got them, to you, Lynne, to an incredible journey, incredible woman. Thank you very much. I'm thirsty. I need a drink. Okay, thank you, Lynne. Thank you for sharing your writing with us. I know it's kind of, as you said, the first time you actually sat and wrote it down. And as you said, I think the other day, it was nice to be able to, you're glad you took that moment to write it as well, that you can look back as you move forward as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lily. All right, take care. See you soon. And so we are, if I can find my lovely paper, over to our final guest of the evening. So the journal itself, obviously you've heard a lot of stories this evening, and another huge part of what's really important is the creative around it. So as you will have seen through the artwork on the front cover, Phil from Pip Creative amalgamated a fusion of the journals over the last 4 years. And one of those ladies is the beautiful Debra Luker, who created a fantastic piece for, I think it's Soulhub 3, if I remember rightly. We met through my cousin, and I went to, as you can see on the screen, this incredible space, which I'm very envious of, in the bottom of her garden, where she brings her magic to life. And we connected over India, over the smells, the colours, the tastes of India, and we talked about our passion for travel and our passion for escaping an adventure. I think it's the best way to say it, Deborah.
It's a lovely conversation to have, endless, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. We could go on for forever. So thank you very much. I want to just talk about your piece. So you wrote in the journal about the Indian immersion and about, I guess, what India means to you. You've taken a trip quite recently, last year, and you're gutted that you can't go at the minute. Yeah, tell me about that piece, because when you came back, you kind of, before you went, I said, oh, could you do me a front cover? And you're like, well, all right then, whatever. And then you came back and you had a selection, and for me it was really easy for me to go, right, that's it.
You did immediately go to that piece.
Yeah,
I should twist the question around, because I'd like to know why you chose that as well.
Well, I think there's something about, funny enough, almost the color we're using for the backdrop tonight is not too dissimilar, but it's that it's the greenness of it, but also it's how you bring like textures, colors, influence from cultures, all of that into us together.
Really what I fell in love with when I first went to India. It felt like my heart and soul had always meant to be there. And even I don't know, it's the most bizarre thing, but even in my house, my home, which you've been to, and at art school, in a way, everything seemed to relate to those moments that I was there when I went there sort of 7 years ago. And all the little things that I kept and things that interested me, like little textures and patterns and fabric, and that I sort of hoarded and kept, were just all part of everything that I saw. And I think I just fell in love with it, really. And I just felt it was like a spell for me, and just made my painting, make sense, really. I think I'd long to go. I have a family, so it's quite difficult to sort of leave and say, hey guys, I'm just off to find myself, sort of thing. So I did take time out, and I went off on my own, and I did have people with me that I knew and stuff, but I got in a bit of a panic because I felt it was a very precious time. And what I did is, first of all, there he is.
Who is he?
He is the Maharaj Duleep Singh.
Duleep Singh. Good
Yes,
name.
he's actually originally called the Black Prince, and he was a favorite of Queen Victoria's. He was the last of the Sikh empire, the last king of the Sikh empire, and then he came over here, and he lived in Perthshire.
And when did he appear for you? In India or here?
No, he was just whenever you went around the palaces, and I was just so fascinated by these kind of wherever you went, you have these crumbling, beautiful kind of decaying walls, and then there'd be an old Maharaja, all sort of faded, and his curious kind of tattoos and their moustaches and their grandeur, and it was just, I don't know, everything was fascinating. Imagine.
I feel like you've had a past life in India.
I know, it was a bit like that, and listening to all your guests tonight, how sort of the spirituality and all of the kind of the feeling, which I guess is sort of what this is all about, is I just thought that's really what it was for me. But these are all my sketchbooks, because I think we took this originally out of a sketchbook.
We did, yeah.
And I think it was, for me, when I first got there, it was a little bit of a panic, because you've got a limited amount of time, and you just know that you've been waiting, it's like this opportunity, and you just kind of go out and go, oh my God, look at that, oh look at this, look at that, and oh my God, look at that wall, look at that, all of these things that you see. And then I just had this white sketchbook, and I thought, what am I going to do with it? So I did spend like in the dark of the hotel, I spend the evenings literally with newspapers that I got from the boys in the hotel reception. They were finding me any Hindi papers and bringing these things from the temple, and I was like gluing them into the books to sort of get rid of the white, because there was just no white. And I just couldn't create that whole essence, that sort of that feeling of, and that was kind of a frustration that I've come to terms with now, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm on the journey now of finding these textures. And
can you flick through one of the books so we can see? Because I love these. I mean, as you say, you kind of gather, textures, materials, colors.
So you can sort of see there's lots of different ones. There's the kind of concertina sketchbooks where you can kind of you can just keep drawing. I mean, they're a bit tricky in the streets, because you do get surrounded by quite a few people. It's a little bit awkward, but so you can see here, for instance, I started to get a bit chunky with the paper, but it just made such a difference, because just doing a pen and ink drawing, it will just on the newspaper. And so I sort of developed all these ways of just getting marks and color and a feeling of the chaos. In fact, that one is quite a good example, I suppose, because it's almost accidental as well, which sort of summed up India quite a bit. It had this kind of spillage all over the paper from something in my bag, but actually it just looked quite good.
It's so chaotic, right?
Yeah,
but the magicalness of it.
But yeah, just in a beautiful way as well.
Yeah.
But, so there's quite a lot of books, but when I opened
how I felt having to go through all of those and pick one, right?
No, sorry. But the books are so important, because I can take so many ideas from them, and I can just I know exactly the smells, exactly where I was, I would never have to date them or anything. I just know exactly where I was, what was happening, who was there, how many children were sitting next to me, all of the things that
how many cows.
Yeah, how many cows, all these things. So that's it really. I'm just looking at him. Yeah.
Is he hanging around? He seems to be Mr. Maharaja.
Yes, the Maharajas are really, really beautiful.
Yeah. So just quickly tell us about a book. You've got your own book as well.
Yes, I have been working for quite a couple of years actually on putting a book together of my drawings, paintings, particularly obsessed with color. And I have been, I mean, there's quite a lot of walls in there. I have like the biggest collection of walls because they just had that, you know, often that distressed texture with maybe a chunk of, it would be like a lime washed blue, I'm imagining, with a chunk of paint off, and underneath it there'd be like a little bit of poster and a beautiful color, and then a lady would walk by, and it's just like kind of accidental beauty really, which had its charm.
Yeah.
And
you can't make these things happen, right?
Pardon?
You can't make them happen, and you have the eye to see it as it materializes.
It was just sort of having this eye and just realizing and then putting it together. So I have put together like many pages, and then I'm now doing something actively about it to try and get it published. Yeah, so we shall see.
We shall see. Well, thank you, Debra, for all your talents and creativity. You ran a workshop for us as well, so which got me for the first time in about 20 years doing some artwork. So
good.
But as you can see on the image there, the front cover, and then Debra's piece, and we'll share after, Debra, information about your book as well. So and what's even more amazing is that you're on the front page of the collective as well. It's immersed in there. It continues. So thank you.
Thank you very much,
Carmen. Take care. Bye, lovely. So we're a little bit over time, quite a bit. It's 9 o'clock. Some of you will be ready to go to bed. Andrew's standing up, telling me to wrap it up. So how do you finish an evening like that, right? Spectacular. Thank you to all our guests for all the energy, the love, the support that you've what's the word I'm looking for? You've oozed out of into Soulhub. So I appreciate it. I'm going to do a couple of thank yous. It certainly is the place your heart knows and your soul craves. See, I need to get that line in there somewhere. We know the world's crying out for it. And so hopefully you've been inspired this evening. Here's the QR code if you want to. Gone are the days where you have to have an app. You literally hold your phone up if you've got a smartphone. Irene, I'll send you the link, my mum, so that you can order it if you haven't got a smartphone. And there's a discount on tonight until midnight on the 11th of December UK time. Please share away with your friends and family. You've heard the amazing stories, and we'd love to showcase and share that even further. So a few little thank yous. Paul Maloney, if you're still here, for all your help in getting the printing over the years. You've been incredible. Deep Tea, Matthew, for your generosity. Natalie Hewitt, for your copywriting expertise, your natural flow and your friendship. Thank you. My family, especially the pink-haired lady, my mum, who's taught me much of the wisdom that has threaded its way through Soulhub. I'm beyond lucky to have my family and friends. And then to the whole Soulhub team, who's been incredible, helping me pull this together and being together as a team of energy and creativity and wisdom and knowledge, and doing all the work that you do, particularly at this time in the world. You're all amazing. To my beloved Andrew, thank you, darling, for being here on this journey with me. To Sean, Tally and Sam for making tonight run smoothly, thank you. And to Libby, thanks for joining me. Thank you for answering that phone that day, for accepting the pestery Carmen from Richmond to connect with me. You've made it a really special, I'm getting emotional, a very special evening. So thank you, Libby. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you for this evening. And then finally, to all the illustrators, the artists, the writers, the dancers, the photographers, the singers, all of you soul people, for going deep, for sharing your love, for sharing all your experience and being vulnerable and actually putting it out there in the world. You are freaking awesome. Thank you. So have a wonderful holiday season, everyone. Come and talk to us if you want to get involved. We've got Soulhub School, we've got Soul Walk on Sunday in Richmond Park. We're doing stuff with businesses around mental and physical well-being. There's a lot going on. You've got a team of 20 of here to support and help and have their own programs and initiatives too. So there's a lot going on, yeah, go by the journal. And I think I have my last, before we play out with Lee. Actually, Lee, can I quickly say hello? I know I'm way over time, but Lee, just thank you if you are there. I'll let you actually, Lee, introduce it, our last, your music. If he's here, if he's not, there he is. There he is. Sorry, Lee, it's 9:10, but thank you.
What a wonderful event, Carmen. You know, I'm thrilled to be with you all, and it's so nourishing and inspiring. I'm so moved, you know.
Yeah.
Great to be a part of this. Congratulations.
No, thank you, Lee, and for your incredible music to start us off and to finish us. I'll let you introduce it in a second. So my last word is be love. You know, we got this whole be safe stuff. Forget that. Be love, be wild, and be you, and namaste. Thank you very much. Lee, over to you.
So this next piece is my own piano arrangement of La Califa by Ennio Morricone, one of my favorite composers. Bye, everyone.